Metro. Not that Metro, although they are similar. I'm talking about Metro Exodus, a game that seems to be agreed upon as a fantastic follow-up for 2033 and Last Light. While I can agree for the most part, I don't think that this game deserves the amount of praise that it's gotten. And I'm not here to be contrarian, I promise. There's just a lot wrong with the game that people don't seem to be talking about that I'd like to address. Some of the issues I'll go over aren't necessarily debilitating from a gameplay perspective, but they are hurting the game from a narrative point of view. There's a lot of confusing stuff that happens in the game that we aren't really let in on. Sometimes the game feels like it's constantly telling you an inside joke that only you don't get, so you sit there scratching your head wondering what's even happening. Some of my criticisms will be nitpicky, some of them I have seen complained about, and some I haven't seen addressed at all. The game just feels like it lacks polish. I don't know. Regardless, Metro Exodus isn't a bad game. It's far from it. At times it's some of the most immersive stuff I've ever had the pleasure of playing, but at other times it feels like a rushed or unplanned mess that bothers me to the point where I have to ignore it, because I have to finish the review somehow. I can't just review an unfinished game. But I digress. Just know that these are my opinions, and however abrasive as they may come off, I hope we can at least find some common ground. Let's get started. We start off with an overhead shot of Portland, Oregon. Moscow. I like this shot a lot because it showcases the absolute devastation that was unleashed upon once a great city. You get to see the same thing in Last Light and 2033, except now it's rendered in the glorious 4A engine, which I'll admit is very impressive. This game is stunning. It's gorgeous. It's everything a further installment should be at the very least when it comes to visual fidelity. Unfortunately, the gamma system is a little wonky for reasons I'll describe later, but I have it set so low for a reason, I promise. I'll explain later. Our main protagonist, Artyom, jumps into a sewer manhole after... we don't know. He was just on the surface, and that's all we know for now. We start with very little ammo and a flashlight that feels like one of those reading lights that you would turn on in airplanes. There's a part in the beginner section where you find an attachment for your shotgun that gives you a larger magazine, and it's a cool feature. I hear shots in the distance, so I rush towards the gunfire, and I'm hit with that familiar bell that means that a gate is opening. Before you get there, you get to shoot some mutants, and the gunplay feels really good. Not clunky, and your gun seems powerful. Shotguns in this game aren't as anemic as the ones in Call of Duty, so that's good too. You make it to a door that's flashing with a yellow light, so that means that you're going the right way. But as you open the door, you get jumped by the hoodlums that inhabit the underground of Portland. And in a pretty badass but semi-unrealistic sequence, you manage to fight all of them off. Covered in the blood of your enemies like a true Nord, two people who recognize us manage to find us and pull us out of the pile of corpses while shooting off the rest of the hoodlums who are still hungry. These two men are Demir and Duke. And this is where things start to get weird, unfortunately. You get hit with the worst tinnitus sound effect to ever grace your ears, which was so bad actually, I had to take my headset off whenever it happened. It was that bad. Fortunately, 4A Games recognized their prowess in making the worst audio known to man, and added a setting that allows us to disable it. I am so happy about this. You're carted away on a stretcher, and you're taken through the station towards the medical area, and I noticed that the characters talk over each other. And it's not the main characters speaking over background noise or interrupting them naturally. Both characters finish their lines regardless of being interrupted or interrupting someone. Characters are constantly and unnaturally speaking over each other, and it sounds very odd, like they're acting and they aren't actually real people. Demir asks Duke where to go when the only direction to go is left.
Where to now? Left across the square.
And don't even say, actually, you could have walked past these people and continued forward another 20 feet. You know damn well that this is a residential area. Don't be intentionally dense. And besides, how does Demir, a Spartan, not know where to go in this station? You would think that as a Spartan, he would know where to go in case he's needed somewhere, because, oh, I don't know, I guess these guys had never seen mutants come through the vents before. Demir also tells a bystander to leave us alone before the insult is even tossed our way.
Hey you, leave him alone.
I killed him myself with my slingshot.
Let him learn to stand up for himself. How else can he hope to survive in the metro?
And then Duke says some shit about how we need to learn how to survive in the metro. Like, bitch, do you know who I am? I am Artyom. I am literally John Metro, destroyer of commies and fascists. You recognized me when you were pulling me out of the pile of mutants earlier, so we had to at least had some sort of rapport before this. And even if we didn't, there's no way you haven't heard of my legacy from the Colonel. I don't know, man. This writing just feels so weird. We wake up to a familiar face, one that isn't some unknown character that we're supposed to care about, but it's Anna, our mail-order bride from Russia, and she's actually somewhat reasonable with what she says. She talks about how she's worried about us, and she attempts to extinguish any hope of people living on the surface, most likely because she doesn't want to see us hurt again. Her father, the Colonel, walks in and gives us a stern but very fair talking to, which is the very least of what I expected of someone like him. I have expected this guy to order the doctor to let us die instead of giving us the blood transfusion. And even he tells us that he doesn't care if we die trying to look for what we're looking for on the surface. The doctor comes to see you and he calls us selfish because people are donating their blood to you just so that you bring it back irradiated after going on a trip to the surface. Which isn't how radiation works, by the way, but whatever. He says that if we go back to the surface, there isn't a guarantee that he can save us again. Which, I don't know, it doesn't sound like a lack of resources to me. It just sounds like the doctor doesn't want to bother with us. I'm not saying he's wrong for this, though. We step out of the medical bay right into a bar area, which is either Russian culture or bad zoning or both. We high-five a shit ton of people we're never introduced to, and they're all apparently very familiar with us. One guy named Tokarev comments about how these people behave like children, and yeah, I'd have to agree. The voices and animations seem extremely exaggerated. This kind of behavior doesn't really feel like it would suit Spartans who have lived in the metro for more than half their lives. You'd think that these people would be more grizzled and mature. I'm not saying that every character needs to be a hyper-stoic Master Chief type, but I don't know, man. If you're going to create a lineage of troopers that are known for being the Metro's elite, you should at least probably try and have their personalities fit the bill. I'm sure given time we'll see these guys more fleshed out, though. Maybe. In the next mission, we're in a skyscraper that's high enough for us to use our radio backpack. Oh, yeah, that backpack in the beginning? It was a radio. And we're told that our search for radio contact is a fruitless endeavor by our loving and optimistic wife. We make our way through the ruins, and there are some secrets to be found here, but admittedly, I just don't really care. I don't think it's the game here, though. I think it's just me. I don't know. There's a part where we have to cross a bridge made of some weird metal that looks like it used to be a support structure, and I think the devs intended for this sequence to be okay, you go first, then I'll follow, because the path is apparently unstable. But instead, it's both of us cross because you were talking and I couldn't have known that the bridge was going to fall until after we both damn near crossed it. And I'm not going to go back because, you know, I'm just going to commit and hope for the best. Thankfully, though, you aren't punished here for the game's lack of timing when it comes to in-game events and voice lines. You continue throughout the ruins and you get to shoot some more mutants, but you have an AK instead of your shotgun, so they don't go down nearly as easily. You step outside to breathe some of that nice Paris air, and again, this game is beautiful. It's definitely up there in my top 10 best looking games. You get a glimpse at the sun, and you can see the whole thing. The whole silhouette is seen, and it's bright, but it isn't awful to look at. And this can be seen in two ways. One, the devs weren't really paying attention and they were just like, big yellow ball, done. Or the other one, which I like more, is that the sun is so visibly pure because of the amount of pollutants in the air. There's so much shit in the air that the thing that you aren't supposed to be looking at is now nerfed due to the Earth turning itself into a reverse Venus. Kinda cool. You get hit by a sudden blizzard, but also manage to catch a look at a real running train on the surface. Anna says switch to radios after the blizzard becomes deafening, but her voice doesn't come through a radio. She sounds exactly the same. A car conveniently spots us and picks us up. It's the homies. They've come to offer us free candy, and lucky for them, we happen to be craving Skittles. Unfortunately, the only thing that we'll be eating is the stock of an AK for now, though. These guys aren't the homies. In fact, these are the ops. We're riding in the back of the Scary People's van with an old woman and a guy that are presumably related to each other. We get lore dumped on and are told that there are other civilizations outside of Moscow, which kinda proves that what we were looking for wasn't just radiation-induced schizophrenia. There are actually people out there. If you look closely though, you can tell that the guy on the right side in the driver's cabin is unnaturally still, like he's no-clipping through the van. The lighting on him is also off, so Metro's connection to the Garry's Mod universe is growing. We stop and these guys let the other two people out to kill them when our superhero John Metro says, "Not if I have anything to say about it." We get bit by a dog and then shot. The other two people are shot as well, and it was all in vain. I really don't know what our team was expecting to accomplish here. You would think that we would have survived this far by using our cunning intellect and fighting skills, but no, we just kinda say, fuck it, we ball, and try fist fighting 3 guys and a dog with AKs. The dog doesn't have an AK. Never mind, you get what I mean. In the following cutscene, you spend the next 15 seconds fumbling around for a gas mask, but the gamma is so fucked in this game you literally cannot see anything. I'm playing on the recommended gamma settings too. It's not like I'm doing this to myself. By the grace of God, we're alive, and our team exposes to us that he's Jewish, and then we manage to find ourselves inside the train station. And a lot of this place is just sneaking around and expository dialogue between the characters working in the train station. And it's not all bad dialogue either. Most of it's good and feels right within the setting. We come to the end of a tunnel which leads to a room that we meet our next character, who's kind of annoying to me. Yermak, an old man with no personal space. Yermak gets thrown into this room, and the 2 guards who throw him in here suffer from the talking over each other issue, which makes him sound a little weird and kinda less threatening. He finds us and thinks that we're a mutant. A watchman, actually. Yeah, I could see the resemblance. He breaks all social distancing rules with us, and by rolling a nat 20 or something, this guy is convinced to work with us. And he helps us out by reuniting us with Anna after we creep around in the shadows for a bit. We get in a fight with some guys in a control room, and we negligently discharge our loaded firearm into the computers on the wall, breaking the 3rd rule of firearm safety. We find out that the computers that we damaged were responsible for the continuous operation of a radio jammer that blocked all signals from leaving or entering Moscow. Why? I'm glad you asked. You'll get your answers later though. We gotta leave because people spawned in the room behind us and are trying to get in. There were no other doors leading into the outside rooms of the control room, by the way. The place was only accessible through the outside or through the vent that we crawled in through, so those muffled voices had to be our schizophrenia acting up again. I know I just showed you a grated doorway after saying all this, but they couldn't have been in that way either, because the voices wouldn't have been muffled. We didn't see any flashlights coming down the hall, and they didn't acknowledge our characters speaking immediately, so this can't be the case either. I didn't even mention that the only reason why we're alive is because our Spartan dog tag stopped the bullet. Dog tag stopping the bullet is like me pissing on the moon. In no universe is that shit happening unless you're getting shot at by some grade A trash, man. Like, these rounds are so dog shit, they're made out of cardboard. We should not be alive. What? I'm not even talking about the indent in the back of the bullet too, acting like the hammer hits the back of the bullet itself and just fires with no propellant. Fucking just as Kalashnikov intended. What the hell, man? We lift Anna onto a ladder that's questionably placed, and then we sneak around in this little outdoor area. After sneaking in and being shot at, which wasn't a scripted sequence, it was me fucking up, the inside of the train station isn't alerted to our presence. Nor did the people who shot at us follow us into the room that we ran into. So they basically saw a homeless guy bum rush a door in their courtyard after shooting him. And once he left the courtyard, they were like, guess he's gone. Like, what the hell, man? We sneak around in the surrounding platform, turning off lights and executing people when we finally manage to find Yermak. Anna comes out of the shadows, literally out of nowhere, and then we start plotting with Yermak on how to steal the train. Why are we even trying to steal the train? We could just go back underground and make our way back to the starting area in the game. Like, what are we doing? Ignoring all logic and reasoning, we walk up the stairs when suddenly it's on. Everyone in the train station suddenly and magically knows where we are, and we get in a massive gunfight that isn't too bad, at least when you're shooting the enemies on the inside. I turn a doohickey that does the thing, and suddenly there's a shit ton of people on the scaffolding outside the window. We shoot them off, and then the precariously placed explosion tanks explode, causing the control room to collapse from the inside. The floor gives out, and for some reason, everything is on fire beneath us, and I can't help but think that the only reason why this is because the devs thought it would look cool. We both fall into the pit of fire, and then Anna says this.
That was intense.
Such weird dialogue, man, I'm telling you. And we aren't even out of the fight yet. Oh, and that heartbeat sound that you heard? Get used to it, because it's here to stay until the end of the mission. You'll see. We fight our way to the train, and then we take off with Yermak at the helm, when we're hit by a flashbang. Within seconds, we're apprehended, and then held at gunpoint by our own boys, which within seconds, the Colonel decides to switch to the red team and then betray everything he's fought for. Within seconds. The Colonel believes that the best course of action is to steal the train to transport us out of Moscow, and then wait until everything blows over. Yeah, buddy, I don't think this is just gonna blow over. We killed them, disabled their jammer temporarily, and then stole their train. There isn't any going back for us, there's just no way. The boys are in on it too, I guess, after convincing the Colonel with some camaraderie that's awkwardly timed and just sounds weird.
No matter what. Of course. Artyom, Anna, they are with us.
Leaves no one behind. Alright, Spartan.
After that, we go outside to talk to Anna when her gas mask sound effect goes away, so she sounds perfectly normal. The heartbeat sound is still here, by the way. I want you to watch this scene very closely. Oh, you didn't catch that? Let me play it again for you. Sports fans, the train literally scoots over a whole track after colliding with us. What? In the next sequence, we jump onto the train after being handed explosives that somehow these people knew existed after not knowing that we had trains on the surface. We fight our way through the train, and it's a pretty interesting fight because you can hear the radio communications between the Colonel and the enemy officer. The Colonel insists that he isn't a traitor while he's riding on stolen military equipment. Whatever, man. We manage to get to the stoker room where we plant the explosives. We pull a brake lever that's weirdly placed, but I'm not a train guy, so I wouldn't know. And then jump back onto our train, and then we ride away into the sunset watching the other train explode. We definitely cannot go back now. This whole first mission has left me with such a weird feeling. If this wasn't a Metro title, I wouldn't have been playing it past this mission, but since it is, I'm left with this feeling that says, it'll get good, just be patient. And I've already played this game, it does get better, but that's not to say that it's a different game with different developers after this mission. The game is the same and suffers from the same problems, but it gets better for reasons I'll get into in the next video. Overall, I would rate my experience a 5 out of 10 so far. I'm not pleased with what I've seen, but it isn't the worst game I've ever played. If you've made it this far into the video, I'd like to thank you for your patience. There's probably some stuff I got wrong in this, and if you managed to catch it, please comment what it is so I can correct myself and pay more attention in the future. This is also content that I'm not used to creating, and if you're previously subscribed watching this going, what the hell is this? Sorry bro, this is something that I want to do now. I'll continue to make other stuff, but yeah, thanks.